With Pokemon Legends ZA coming out in only a couple months, let's react to some Pokemon stuff. We have Why You Really Miss the Old Pokemon by AO Craig. He does some pretty cool content.
Pokemon has
And
existed
he's a
for a
small channel,
while
so
now,
help him
hasn't
out.
it? We're cusping on 30 years of the franchise, and it's fair to say that the mainline game series is at the very heart of it.
I can't believe Pokemon is 30 years. To put it in perspective, I am gonna be 28 next month. Yeah, I know I'm a guy in his late 20s, still struggling through life, but hey, it is what it is. But I can't believe Pokemon is 30 years old. It feels like yesterday I was just playing Gen 4 for the first time.
These games are the canvas we use to create our own stories within the world of Pokemon, through exploring and catching and training, building a team and leading them to glory. But
Hmm.
there's a sentiment among a lot of long term players these days that something has changed. Something feels different now. Despite all the useful quality of life additions and expanded mechanics and everything else alongside them, some people feel that the magic isn't quite there anymore. Or at least it's not what it used to be back in the days of classic Pokemon. And the easy answer there is that we grew up. That childhood sense
Exactly. Nothing really changed. All of us just grew up. The Pokemon has always been the same, and that's that's fine to some people just like me, but I could understand why some people wouldn't like it as much anymore.
of wonder and whimsy no longer drives our video game experiences. But I think it probably runs a little deeper than that. Personally, I really enjoy the recent games. I'm kind of a
Same
rare
here.
case of someone who started with Pokemon Red and Blue, but the Switch era, even for all its faults, is my favourite era. But there's still a heavy nostalgia there for the early games as well. So I understand both sides of the conversation. So, why do you really miss the old Pokemon? Let's see if we can come to a consensus. I'm going to start with a bit of low hanging fruit, and that's simplicity. Older Pokemon games didn't have fancy battle gimmicks or big open areas, and they also didn't hold your hand that much. And that's what I'm honing in on here. There weren't NPCs stopping you every 10 steps to explicitly tell you where you needed to go next. It was a simple adventure that was, for the most part, entirely yours to navigate your way through. It is something I've noticed more in the most recent 2 or 3 generations. I actually took a little time recently to look around the towns and cities of Pokemon Sword and Shield. No particular reason, I think I was just bored one evening. And I realised that there are little nooks and corners and houses in this game that I had still never inspected. And I think that does probably come down to the NPC characters in these newer games pushing you pretty hard towards the next thing all the time. There is the odd occasion where the screen fades to black after an interaction and you're teleported outside of the town you were just in. So as a result, I guess you will naturally explore less of the places you're in while you're in them. It has become more of a post-game thing now to go back and find those little nuggets of architecture and interactions. And that is fine too. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to
I think one thing that could kind of fix this with the modern Pokemon games and future ones, if because they're going to keep going to the 3D route, we're never going to go back to the sprite. I know some people sprite-based games. I know some people want that, but let's be real, it's not going to happen. Especially whenever they do Gen 5 remakes, they're not going to. It'll probably be like BDSP, which I'm personally okay with. I'm personally okay with that. But I think what needs to be done is adding side quests. They did that in Legends Arceus, but with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, they kind of did. You do have some few side quests, but it's not really too many, or there's not a checklist to show you what you've done and what you haven't done. I think just adding more to the world would be useful since Scarlet and Violet's world didn't really have enough. Like it was massive, but there's no really reason to go back to X area or Y area other than just to catch a Pokemon.
do that. But it is different from how I used to play the game, certainly. I used to check out every inch of a town before moving on. Nowadays, it's more of a chaperoned experience through the main plot points taking place in that town, and then I'll come back later.
I'm honestly, honestly, I'm the opposite. I just go where the main story needs me to go, and well, when I was little, that's what I did. But nowadays, I tend to explore more towns and all that whenever they're in games.
later on to properly explore it. So that boils down to a control thing. A little bit of control is being taken away from our adventure. It's still very much our adventure, but the strings are a little tighter. And for some people, that taints the original concept of Pokemon. The older games were very heavy on exploration, and the story was more of a secondary thing. There actually wasn't even that much story in games like Red and Blue and Gold and Silver. You battling your way to become the champion was the story. The world really does revolve around you in the early Pokemon.
I think it's when Gen 3 where they started to amp up their story, like the lore and all that. Like Gen 3 had the whole thing with Kyogre and Groudon, and Gens 1 and 2 didn't really have that much, but they had pretty decent story for what they were able to make with back then.
Games. Then we had the Generation 3, 4, and 5 games where story was creeping in a little heavier,
Hmm.
mostly just confined to the evil teams and their ambitions though. And then playing mainline Pokemon now, you're jumping into a full-on story that you could argue would take place with or without you in the picture. You're still on your own unique adventure, that core of the experience hasn't disappeared, but it isn't the centerpiece anymore. And it sounds narcissistic, doesn't it? But people might miss that. The older games
Hot take, but Gen 9 has the best story. I know Gen 5's really good. Well, actually, no, I think for me, it maybe, I have to think about it more, but I think it's a toss up between Gen 5 and Gen 9. And then after that, Gen 7.
were very simple representations of the worlds they were set in.
It's not only just the story, but the characters they add in it.
This next point isn't actually exclusive to Pokemon, you could say this about any game, but I think it's still worth noting for a minute or two. The first 5 generations of Pokemon were 2D pixel sprite games. So the towns and cities, for example, being condensed down to just 4 or 5 buildings wasn't an issue for us, because we just sort of naturally understood that this is a simplified representation, and we were happy to fill in the gaps in our heads. Now we're in 3D, and even in open world territory, there's less there for our minds to fill in. We take the game's visuals more at face value, as a fully fleshed out picture of that location. The issue with that is that we're still sometimes getting towns with the same 3 or 4 building layouts. So now they really can just look underwhelming. People often harp on Pokemon towns in the newer games for being small or lifeless or a straight line. And I guess the problem there that people aren't really recognizing is that it's just the
Oh
exact
man,
same layout
I
style
wish
as
I wish I forgot the name of this town, but I know it's with Marnie's brother. I forgot his name, but like the Dark Gym Leader in Sword and Shield, like this town looks pretty cool, and I want to like at least do more. But fun fact, there is some side quests in Sword and Shield. Like I remember when I was completing the Pokedex, I went to the town in the middle one. It's like with Rhydon's gym. I believe that's his name, the Dragon type gym leader, and there was actually a little side quest you could do where you take a letter to another town.
the 2D towns and cities, just without the imagination gap. Some translate well, bigger cities look like cool big
It's a shame
3D
Scarlet and
cities,
Violet you
but the
can't go
smaller
into most of the
locations
buildings.
fall flat a lot of the time. Imagine the heat locations like Mahogany Town and Village Bridge would get by today's standards. But we remember them more fondly because, as 2D representations, we imagined them as more. Now picture Alphanada in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Fully fleshed out 3D town. Even has some memorable architecture. But do you think of it that fondly? If this town was in a 2D Pokemon game, I think I'd really like it. I think a lot of people would really like it. It would stand out in my opinion. But in 3D, with those same proportions as a 2D sprite world, it's completely forgettable. It's a straight line with one little backstreet, dropped in the middle of a lot of emptiness. The 3D camera is the only thing saving Alphanada from being essentially Spikemouth 2.0.
Spikemouth, that's its name.
So that could be a reason why people miss the older games. Your imagination isn't stimulated as much.
Hmm.
There is the other side of that though. As I said, we have some really beautiful looking locations in the 3D era. Cities like Mesagoza and Levincia and Winden, and other game locations like Area Zero.
Dude, Area Zero was so amazing when I first got into it. Like I knew I was in the very end of the game when I first got into it, especially with that music.
and many
I
areas
think it took me like 2 hours just to go through the entire thing because I was just so mesmerized by the area, and I just wanted to catch the paradox Pokemon.
around the Crown Tundra, many of which go beyond what my mind would picture them as if they were represented in 2D. It's the reason why I'd love to see certain locations from the 2D era games brought up and reimagined on the newer systems. The Distortion world would go crazy in 3D. Saffron City would be another huge metropolis. The Hoenn region as a whole, I think, would be incredible as an open world. My hope is that the best is yet to come in that area. This next note I have here is a bit of a subjective one, I guess, so I'd be interested to hear people's opinions on it. But is there less conflict in the newer games? I think it's fair to say that the world in general has
I think that's a hmm. When it came to conflict, like in Scarlet and Violet, I think that was pretty good. Like there was no need for a big bad evil team. Like Team Star was really just misunderstood. Like they got bullied a lot, and they basically just created their own group just to be free of bullying. And we didn't really need a big bad team. We just needed like something that could harm the region, like the Paradox Pokemon.
changed a lot over the last 25, 30 years, and the way that media is made can be a direct reflection of that. In older games, villains were straight up bad guys. Not that they were completely one
Hmm.
dimensional, but they were bona fide antagonists. In the last few installments, we've steered more towards disenfranchised youth, clumsy, misunderstood hooligans, and schoolyard bullies who aren't quite who they appear to be on the surface. Which I'll say I've come to appreciate more and more over the last year or two in particular. I like that we're taking the typical villain group concept in Pokemon games and doing things that are a bit more thought provoking with it. But some people will
Yeah, it's also like different. Like it spices things up. Like it's not something you could easily predict. You're like, ooh, what's going to be the bad guy in this game? Because you could even argue that Legends Arceus never really had a bad guy group. Also, it just had a problem that needs to be solved. I like that. I like that more than just a bad stereotypical bad guy group.
probably argue that they
Though Team Skull did it really well, in my opinion. Like when I found out that twist, I was like, oh dang.
miss the outright wickedness of a group who wants to commit terrible crimes and take over the world. And that point could spill over into the rival characters as well. They've become more like companions that offer friendly competition nowadays, for the most part. I think Bede was a great little revisit into the older style rivals in that regard. But yeah, the overarching point there being that you could argue that the conflicts have softened in more recent Pokemon games, and that douses your motivation to some extent. But again, that could also
Mm,
come down to the harder emphasis on stories over big bad villainous characters. Taking those points into account, I think it's also important to address the sobering fact that franchises just change over time. And the point where you first enter a
yeah, I mean, look at Zelda for example. Like it was pretty much okay. So I got kind of crap for back when I made my Switch tier list video. I put like on the thumbnail, I put Breath of the Wild as an F, but I put it as a C in general. Like I think in exchange for a more traditional story for a giant massive overworld with not that much depth kind of ruined the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom for me. But Zelda changed and look at its sales. Like it's doing really massive, really well.
franchise is going to be sort of your anchor point within it. You get an idea for what it is based on your first few exposures to it, and that then becomes the thing you measure all future releases against. Whether you enter the mainline Pokemon games at Red and Blue, or Black and White, or Sun and Moon, that's going to influence what a Pokemon game fundamentally
Fun fact, Black and White were the first Pokemon games that I bought on my own. I'm pretty sure. Like I bought with my own money. Or no. Maybe it was. No, it was definitely Black and White.
is in your mind. And when that changes, it's pretty normal to initially have a bit of a visceral reaction at first. But hopefully that doesn't inhibit your ability to enjoy the games. I'm
Yeah.
loving mainline Pokemon more than ever at the moment, and I'm pretty excited for the next few years. But I'd absolutely be interested to hear what you guys think about this. Have you experienced that feeling of the magic being lost in any way? Maybe you still think it is just nostalgia presenting itself in different ways. Whatever you think, drop a comment and let us know where you sit. While you're down there, please do drop a quick like on the video, that helps a lot. Subscribe for more Pokemon videos. Special thanks to our channel members. And of course, join the Discord, we have a lot of extended chats over there. Thanks for watching, take it easy, and I'll catch you in the next one.
I think for me, it's like the magic really hasn't died down. Like I'm still always going to be excited for Pokemon games. It's what family and video games are what's keeping me alive. So, what's keeping me from going further. So that's it. Like the fun hasn't really died down. Like I'd argue it actually increased more with the changes that they're making. Like the shift from evil, bad criminals to just a major threat within the region. Like I think that's a good change. That's often going to be better. And also like we don't really know much about ZA, but from what we've seen, the little of it, it's going to be pretty good. And I believe there's a direct next week, which is going to be pretty good. Yeah, that's going to be it. Really good video. Shout out to AO Craig. Go check him out. But yeah,